I'm a 34-year military veteran, just retired last August. And when it was during my deployment to Iraq, where I was exposed to an explosion and had some injuries that had a deficit in hearing. And the funny thing is when I came back from deployment, they have all these different tests that you do, and one of them was hearing tests. And they said, well, you have some hearing deficit, quite a bit. You need to go and continue this, and I never did.
When I first met Cliff, we started off his evaluation by talking about his history of noise exposure as well as other communication concerns during his time in military service. Cliff is a veteran that has proudly served for many, many years, and it wasn't until he was getting ready to retire that he took some time to look into his overall hearing health.
When I decided I was going to retire, that's when I went and got the hearing test that I should have got several years ago, and I had no idea how terrible my hearing had gotten. And that's one thing that I was thankful that when I finally went and got that comprehensive hearing test and realized how bad my hearing was, it really changed my life. Because all the things that I didn't hear, I could now hear. And I have an 18-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. And it was funny because my family would always say, Dad, what are you mad about? What are you yelling about? And I'm like, I'm not yelling. And when I came to the hearing doctors, they put those hearing aids in my ears for the first time, and I could hear. I was almost in tears because it was that moment that I realized why my kids were saying that I was yelling at him when I wasn't. And it was truly an amazing, moving experience for me to finally realize how bad my hearing had gotten and how much I had missed out on.
One common thing that I hear across all of my new patient evaluations is that they feel that their family feels that they're always yelling at them. Or on the other side, we have spouses or family members or loved ones sitting in the room with us saying, I feel like I can hear him from across the house, or I feel like I can hear her yelling on the phone. In reality, that patient may not know that they're talking at an elevated level because of a hearing loss. We encourage all people to come in and get a hearing test if they or their loved ones find that they're speaking a little too loud in certain situations.
I have my own podcast that I do, the Mental Health Warrior for Veterans Trash Talk, and it's very important that I can hear my guests and hear people speak. And it's amazing that, people like always said, oh, well, at least I could see, I could care less if I could hear. But when you lose one of your senses and you don't realize it, and I didn't realize how bad my sense was, and Dr. Valania, who's awesome, will tell you how bad my hearing was, it's life-changing when you can hear again.
Cliff hosts a podcast, and I was fortunate to be a member on a few of his shows. While speaking about not only the military community, and as a military spouse, it was fun to sit down and talk about our lifestyle. It was also fun to sit and talk about overall hearing health. It's important to take action on your hearing health, not only after you leave the military service, but during your time in active duty.
I will tell you that I was a little apprehensive about coming to the hearing doctors because, I'm a man, military, big tough guy. I don't want to admit that you have any problems. But walking in the door here, it was so inviting. The receptionist immediately asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee. Do you want, some water? Just the environment itself is just like if you walked into your living room at your house, and it was very nice. When I sat down with Dr. Valania for the first time, and she was kind of talking with me about the process of getting hearing aids and how all that works, and then going and doing the hearing test in the hearing booth. Very relaxed. I didn't feel rushed. Sometimes when you go to the doctor, they just want to get you in and get you out. I've never felt that here, and I'm really appreciative of that.
Though this was not Cliff's first set of hearing aids, we were able to fit him with updated technology that allowed him to really focus on conversations with multiple talkers. Something that he really struggled with was being able to listen and keep up in those dynamic conversations, and one of his main listening goals was to get that back. The updated technology allows him in his brain to really process and understand what's going on in complex listening environments.
You start thinking about all the conversations where I just completely missed. If I'm in a meeting with a bunch of people and somebody hits a certain tone, I just wouldn't hear it. And to me, that was very shocking to me. And so when she did the hearing test, and then she goes off and she orders your hearing aids and get programmed based on your hearing test, because that's very important. And I sit in the office and I put him in for the first time. And you can't even see him. I mean, they're very small. You can't hardly see them. Um, we're in her office and the door's shut, and I can hear the receptionist out in the lobby, and I didn't hear that 5 seconds ago. It's pretty amazing.
Cliff is a public speaker, and when he went to speaking events, he would find himself isolating prior to those events because he wasn't able to clearly communicate with members of the audience both during and before or after the shows. This is not an uncommon problem. People with a hearing concern tend to isolate themselves from conversations, whether it be a small group conversation or at a large family gathering. They find that if they can't hear and communicate what's going on, they would rather just sit and not be a part of the conversation.
When I go out and I do speaking events and people want to come up and have that conversation with me, before I had my hearing aids, I would kind of not really avoid it, but really wouldn't engage them, right? And so I would be very cordial to them, and I would kind of listen to them and just kind of give them the yeah and blah, 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 and kind of move on. Not to be rude, but a lot of times I was really struggling with hearing what they were saying, so I really would have to kind of concentrate on what they were talking to me about. And so it became important after I got the hearing aids, I didn't have to do that. And so I could just have a normal conversation, just like we're having a conversation now, where I could just go and freely talk with him. But not only that, if I'm talking to 2 people at a time or 3 people at a time, I could have that conversation. Where before, I would only have a conversation with one person because I couldn't focus on a 3-person conversation without the hearing aids, because I just couldn't do it.
Cliff has dedicated his time following his military service to speaking across the country about veterans and their mental health. I feel very lucky to play a small part in his communication journey, as fitting him with appropriately fit hearing aids allows him to go out and spread his message about mental health in the military community. With his confidence to go out and speak about a topic that many, many are suffering from, it is very important for us to just play a small part in his story. We're grateful for the opportunity to work with members of the military community as TRICARE authorized providers. If you or a loved one have changes in your communication or are in need of an audiologic evaluation, please reach out to one of our offices in the Maryland and Virginia areas. To make or schedule an appointment with our providers, please visit hearingdoctors.com.